Hello and welcome to the video. Today we're gonna take a look at the Ultra League and the top meta Pokemon. Today we're gonna have another tier list video here for the Ultra League. So already did one last week for the Great League. If you didn't see this one, definitely check it out. But let's move on immediately here for this video. We're going to rank them all and we're gonna start here with the Venusaur. For me, Venusaur, like grass types in general, are a little bit tricky. I'm going to put it into the B tier for this one. Like all Pokemon that you're going to see today are actually viable. It's just for me, like the best Pokemon are ranked here for me. So like they're going to be some that are a little bit lower ranked, but they're still viable for the meta. The Charizard is honestly kinda, I don't know, like I feel like it's a little bit worse this season, but it's going to be still a very solid one. You could argue of S tier. I'm gonna put it into A tier, which is still, again, very solid. It's a very solid Pokemon. While Blastoise is going to be in the lowest tier. You don't really see it often. It's not really the greatest one. A better flying type Pokemon in general, especially for this season, is going to be the Pidgeot. Pidgeot is an S tier Pokemon for me, not S tier plus, but definitely a very solid pick right now. Did a lot of videos already with this Pokemon, very solid pick. We're going to have the Alolan Sandslash. Got a little bit worse this season, still very viable, still very good pick in the A tier. A tier is basically stuff that you see also still all the time. That is very viable, but just not like that crazy strong. We're going to have the next one here going to be Nidoqueen. Nidoqueen is still viable, but it's definitely fell off a little bit since like the Poison Fang nerf with like 5 more energy. Here we're going to see it in B tier for me at least. We're going to have Clefable next, and Clefable kinda still has to go into A tier for me. It's between A and S as well. Like kinda like Charizard and Clefable are kinda in between here. You could argue for either of them. I'm just gonna put it into low S here. You can still change them around, like both of them are kind of fine. It's kind of fluid between those. You're going to have the Alolan Ninetales. Alolan Ninetales kinda got a little bit less of viability. I'm gonna put into B tier again. It's viable still, but I feel like there are other Pokemon that are just a little bit better for that role. The first S tier plus pick is going to be Poliwrath. Insane this season, really, really good. We're going to have the Machamp next. Machamp, there are just way too many good fighters in this kind of meta. Like it's still, again, like C tier is still also viable. Pokemon like this you can still use and you can still succeed with it. It doesn't mean that those Pokemon are garbage. It's just that they are not as great as others, and currently the best fighting type by far is the Poliwrath in my opinion. You're going to have the Tentacruel. I have to say, I hate to play against this Pokemon. For me, S tier for sure, especially after the Scald buff. It's just so annoying. Like honestly, it's just such an annoying Pokemon. We have Gengar here. Gengar is actually like rank 30 or something on PvPoke, and honestly, I feel like I played it before. I just didn't really like it. It's a really, really squishy. It's just not really fitting for the current meta. We're going to have the Weezing, the second best fairy type most likely, or not second best. There's another fairy type that's still going to be S tier. But for me, A tier Pokemon, great say so, great lead, still very viable, very strong Pokemon. Could be close to S tier as well, but it's a very strong one there for sure. We're going to have Zapdos. There should have been a video earlier on with Zapdos, so definitely check this one out as well. Shadow Zapdos, really cool in the current meta, but for me, kind of low A tier-ish. Definitely a solid Pokemon, but like just misses a little bit of bulk. We're going to have Dragonite. Shadow Dragonite is definitely close to S+, but definitely high S tier. Very good Pokemon, especially the Shadow variant. Normal variant, not as great. The Mewtwo is here the Armored Mewtwo, which I'm still gonna put into low B tier. I feel like it has a little bit more play this season for something like Poliwrath, for example, so it does make sense to put it a little bit higher, but yeah, for me, this is kind of where it belongs, as we can move on with Meganium. Got nerfed with Earthquake nerf recently. It's still viable again, but like, yeah, it's going to be somewhere in the B tier as well. Next one going to be Lantern. Lantern is a cool Pokemon, a very solid in the current meta. It's like rank 20 or something for the Ultra League right now, which is really solid. Still going to put it into the A tier. There are just a lot more Dragon type Pokemon in the Ultra League, which completely hardwall it, which makes it a little bit tricky sometimes to play. Still a very, very good pick. Like also kind of again like Charizard as well as the Weezing. Between S and A, very, very good to build as well. Like if you have a 100% Lantern, definitely try to build one. It is worth it for sure. Next one, Politoed. Politoed is also an interesting Pokemon here. Got access to the move Scald, but honestly, it still has to be A tier. It's still a very viable Pokemon. It is definitely solid. Next one going to be the Umbreon. It's just not really that great, honestly. Like, it is still viable. Like, Umbreon, again, like every Pokemon that you're going to see here is viable. For me, it's a B tier Pokemon. You barely see it anymore. They're just better Dark types around. As I can move on to the next one, which is going to be the Steelix. Was S+ like last season for sure. The rating don't really show how good this Pokemon still is. I still would put it into the A tier for sure. Most likely somewhere mid A tier even. People just don't really want to play it right now because they don't like the chances with it, but it's still a very, very good Pokemon, and so definitely deserves a tier. Another steel type for the A tier is going to be the Skarmory, actually. It is also kind of highly ranked. I made a video about it already, but like that team kind of got carried by Talonflame, which you're going to see as well later on. But this Pokemon definitely a solid upgrade now with the Steel Wing, but it's not like the most overpowered one. I feel like it's way better in the Great League compared to the Ultra League. But we can move on to the next one. A little bit of a better fighter than the Machamp, in my opinion, is the Triple XL Hitmontop. Like this one quite a bit. Ice type coverage is really good in the current meta, and so this is definitely deserving to be there. We're going to have another S tier Pokemon, again, not for me S tier plus, but it is definitely S tier. It's going to be the Swampert, very strong Pokemon, very good Pokemon in general, definitely high up in the meta. Very, very good Pokemon there for sure. We're going to have Pelipper next, is a little bit of an underrated Pokemon for sure. I feel like it has even a little bit more play nowadays because of Poliwrath, so I'm gonna put them kind of somewhere like where also the Skarmory is definitely worth building if you have a Hundo of it and if you have the XL candy, but otherwise, yeah, like you don't also really need it that much. We have Credilli. Credilli, one of the big upgrades for this season. Basically, a lot of the meta picks are really weak to Credilli, so I'm gonna put it into a very low A tier. It's kind of like Zapdos, kind of really good against the current meta, but can also shift again where it's completely useless. So would definitely, like, if you have one, definitely play it right now. It's really, really good in the current meta, but it could be very bad very soon. Walrein, it just really fell off. In my opinion, B tier. Again, it's still viable, still decent save swap, but especially now with Poliwrath being everywhere, not really the best. Same goes also kind of for the... I mean, I still kind of want to put the Regirock into the A tier. I feel like it kind of deserves a similar spot than the Credilli. It's not the greatest, but it's definitely worth against all the flying type Pokemon that are available. There are a lot of them. Regice, sorry, like this Pokemon is just not really great. I just don't really like it at all. Ice typing is just really bad defensively, and Pokemon Go is a defensive minded game basically, so I kind of want to put it low. I feel like C tier is deserved here. Next, S plus is going to be Registeel. Still have to put it there. Kind of want to put it a little bit lower, but it's like if you don't put Registeel on S plus, like you do something wrong there as well. Next Pokemon that could be S tier plus, but I'm gonna put it a little bit lower, is going to be the Deoxys Defense. Again, for some people it might be the best Pokemon ever. Definitely way better this season. Can shift again. Like the last few seasons, I actually didn't really like it too much in the Ultra League, but this season should be really, really good because you have coverage against Poliwrath, you have coverage against Tentacruel, you have coverage against like the Steel type Pokemon, against the Flying type Pokemon. Like it's really, really strong. If you have one, definitely play it right now. Very solid. Has been always solid. Like it's definitely safe to build this Pokemon, unlike the ones that I said before, but it is not as... Like, it is definitely really, really great right now, but it might not be as great next season. That's what I want to say for that. Next one, Staraptor. Staraptor, especially the Shadow variant, is very highly ranked on PvPoke, and I played it myself. Like, more than BT, I cannot give it. The thing is, for this Pokemon, yes, it's really solid. It does a ton of damage, but, like, it's either you completely win the game with a sweep of Staraptor, or you completely lose the game because the opponent can farm you down. Like, there's nothing really in between, and so I feel like it's a little bit too... Yeah, not why. Like, it's just a little bit too dependent on the matchup itself, so I kind of want to put it into B tier. I feel like it's kind of solid for that. Skuntank, I'm gonna put into A tier, and I'm gonna put the Drapion a little bit into S tier, like low S tier in my opinion currently. Like, both of them are kind of always played together, and I feel like they're both really good together. I feel like Drapion is still a little bit better than the Skuntank, but you could even make an argument for that Skuntank is a little bit better nowadays compared to the Drapion, but it really depends on your playstyle, to be fair there. Toxicroak, one of the better fighting types for sure, very cool core breaker for the recent metas, but like nowadays meta it's a little bit worse than last time around, so I'm gonna put it still into A tier, but it's going to be a little bit lower. Last season basically you had the entire time Steelix, Registeel, Verzian, Cobalion, all those Pokemon, which was really nice for Toxicroak. It's not really the same meta anymore, but it's still kind of solid with it. You might actually not want to run the move Shadow Ball, I feel like, because Sludge Bomb would help you against something like a Pidgeot and also Clefable, for example. So yeah, it really depends on what you want to run, but I feel like Shadow Ball is not even the best move on this one. We're going to have a Bomber Snow, like more than B tier would be too much. I haven't really played it for a long time, maybe you kind of have to revisit it, but I feel like especially in the current meta as well, it is not as great. Licky, I just have never seen this Pokemon, literally. I don't know why it's like such a sim hero or whatever. Never seen this Pokemon, don't think it's that great either in the current meta, kind of like Lickitung in the Great League, but maybe we have to try it out. If you want to see a Licky showcase, let me know down below. We're going to have the next one, Gliscor. In my opinion, dropped a little bit. I feel like S tier was like also in a few seasons ago, but now like maximum is A tier in my opinion. S tier for sure not anymore, like they're just better Pokemon. And also well that you have a lot of Ice Human coverage now on the meta, it's not really as ideal for it. Next S tier plus pick, definitely by far, I would say most like currently one of the best, if not the best Pokemon for this meta is going to be Giratina. Giratina is just broken, like this Pokemon is so good. The other Giratina is also still kind of solid, I'm gonna put it into the B tier, but yeah, like the Giratina Altered is just so strong. Cresselia, I was thinking about putting it into S tier, but I still decided to go into the into S tier plus, I want to say, but I decided to go still for the S tier. Yeah, it's a very good Pokemon still. I feel like it's just kind of never really has the direct matchup where you want to have it in, but it's like so good against like most of the Pokemon that are in the meta. I feel like a lot of people are going to run Future Sight now also for something like the Tentacruel, but still such a good pick right now to play. We're going to have next up Superior, kinda can put to all the other grass types. It's not really that great, gonna put it into the B tier. So you can scroll down a little bit as well. We're going to have next up the Scrafty. Scrafty is for me as well, again, a little bit into the B tier. It's just like, again, it's a fighter that's weak to fighting type Pokemon. With Poliwrath being on nearly every team, it's a little bit tricky to play. We're going to have the Kofag Regus, which I feel like going to have a little bit more play this season as well, if people would start playing this, because if you take a look at the top meta, like that you see here in like S plus and S tier, like it basically has a good play against anything that is not Drapion or the Pidgeot, which is kind of wild. So like this Pokemon has a lot of play in the current meta, just nobody really uses it, but I feel like it has a lot of play. Definitely a lot of players currently Jellicent. This was also close to S plus in the current meta, but definitely S tier, like anything else would be wrong for this Pokemon. Being the hardest answer to Poliwrath basically makes it there already. But yeah, next Pokemon going to be both A tier, which is going to be both forms of Stunfisk. They have kind of individual kind of ways of playing, but definitely take a look at the Unova Stunfisk for both Ultra League as well as Great League. If I had more starters, I would have built already the Unova Stunfisk for the Ultra League, but they look really good in the current meta, just because the meta is kind of fire a lot, but you also have a lot of flying type Pokemon, you have a lot of water type Pokemon, but Unova Stunfisk can beat fire, water, as well as flying type Pokemon, which is kind of wild, so definitely a very solid pick currently. Kind of like Lantern, but you can actually beat Lantern, so it's a solid one for sure. Mandibles, played it a lot recently, has to be low S tier, definitely not close to S plus, but definitely still very solid. I still kind of want to put Gabalia into A tier in the current meta. I have to say that it kind of dropped this season, especially with Poliwrath, but Virizion is still top in the S tier for sure. This is definitely the better one to build from both of them. We're going to have Kyurem next. Kyurem is definitely not as great, but still a very good sim hero. I'm gonna put into B tier, don't think it's as great. Greninja, as said already in the video prior for like the biggest nerfs, it kind of got nerfed this season with Poliwrath being around, so I'm gonna put it into low A tier. We have Talonflame next. You could argue of putting Talonflame into S plus, but I kind of want to keep S plus with 4 Pokemon only, and I'm going to put it into the top of S tier as well. Very solid pick, definitely worth like trying out if you have that Pokemon built already, and otherwise definitely build one. Like it's so worth it to build this Pokemon. Next one going to be Florges. Don't know how it's still like up there. Like you don't want to use Florges if you have access to Clefable. There's literally no reason for you, so definitely don't use it. It just literally does not make any sense at all. We're going to have the Dragalge next. Dragalge is a solid Poison plus Dragon type Pokemon. Definitely has some play, but honestly, more than B tier is not in for this one. Auroras. Like Auroras is literally tricky because it's actually the worst possible defensive typing, I think, with Rock as well as Ice, having a double weakness to both Steel as well as Fighting, plus a ton of normal weaknesses, but it's very good offensively against all the flying type Pokemon that are currently viable, so gonna put it somewhere with Greninja. Kinda a little bit tricky against the Poliwrath, but otherwise it's kinda solid. Trevenant has a little bit more play this season, especially if you can take a look at the S tier with the Registeel plus the Poliwrath. Both of them kind of don't want to face off against the Trevenant. It's kind of good for those. We're going to have the Zygarde 100% form complete, going to be S plus for sure. I haven't played it, but I know it's just busted. Like the bulk of this Pokemon must be insane. But again, like I would put it a little bit lower, but definitely S plus. Even though you have a double weakness to Ice, it's still very, very good in the current meta. We're going to have one Pokemon that kind of dropped as well, which is going to be our Golisopod. Gonna put into the A tier. I don't think anything else would be really okay for this one. Like A tier is still fine, but again, I don't think it's as great nowadays. We're going to have the Kommo, for me B tier pick. Definitely has some play as well, but it's just B tier. We're going to have the Tapu Fini, most likely the best fairy type Pokemon in the current meta still. Going to put it next to all the other water types in the S tier. We're going to have the Buzzwole, again, some kind of fighter for the B tier variant there. We're going to have the Guzzlord. for me has to be A tier, honestly. Like Gastrodon into A tier feels right, in my opinion. This Pokemon has a lot of play in the current meta, especially against something like Giratina. But yeah, it's not as great. Here was the Pokemon that I was thinking the most of putting to S+ after playing it recently, which is Greedent. Greedent is just insane, but I'm going to put just high S tier. Like, this Pokemon is just wild. Dubwool really fell off, sadly. I'm gonna put it into B tier. I cannot really put it any higher. Dubwool really fell off also in the rankings. Same kind of goes for Obstacle. Played it recently. Again, like, all Pokemon that you see here are viable. All of them are playable. But Obstacle I played recently as well, was cool, but yeah, again, also not like overpowered or anything in the current meta. We're going to have the Sneasler next. Again, can kind of go into the fighting tier type here with the B tier. We have Skeledirge, has to be for me an S tier pick for sure in the current meta. Lower one, but is so strong. We're going to have Bellybolt next, which I already made a video, check that one out as well, which is for me B tier maximum. Like, it's nothing more than B tier. Like, honestly, it just doesn't have coverage, sadly. And the final one is going to be Bomberto, which is also going to end up in the B tier. And so we have it. This is going to be my tier list for the Ultra League. Do you agree with it? Do you not agree with it? Let me know in the comment section. That's going to be it for this video. If you enjoyed it, feel free to leave a like, and I'll see you then. Bye bye.